Read it again. Read the terms. Read what Salvatore was getting. The whole case. The evidence. Everything that could destroy the Marchettis, handed to him, buried. I heard my own voice slow as I said it. He got everything. He got everything, Dario agreed quietly. Empire of Ashes. Episode 10. The second book. Written by Mia. Lena. I read my father's second book at the kitchen table at 3 a.m, alone, because some things you have to learn the way he learned them. By yourself. In the dark. With the city asleep, and no one left to perform for. Dario had left it with me. That was its own cruelty. He didn't make me ask for it. He set it on the breakfast table and walked out of the room and let me decide, in my own time, whether I wanted to keep the father I'd buried or trade him for the real one. I held out until 3. Then I opened it. My hands weren't steady. I'll be honest about that, since I've been honest about everything else. I'd carried my father's death like a clean wound for 3 years, a thing that hurt in a way I understood, a grief with good posture, and some animal part of me knew, the second Dario set that book on the table, that I was about to lose the clean version of it. You can grieve a martyr forever. A martyr is simple. I'd built a whole self out of the simplicity of him, the way you build a house on the one piece of ground you're sure will never move. And here was the deed to that ground, in his own hand, telling me it had been moving the whole time. I almost didn't open it. I sat with my thumb on the cover for an hour, in the dark, the way he must have sat with the phone before he called Salvatore. A careful person at the edge of a thing they can't take back, doing the arithmetic and arriving, the way we always do in this family, at the answer that costs the most and lies the least. My father kept 2 ledgers the way a man keeps 2 faces. The first, the one I'd sewn into my coat and carried into a cannery and used to save the lives of my enemies, was the honest book, the evidence. 8 months of a careful man documenting exactly how Salvatore Marchetti had bled him dry and hollowed out the businesses he'd been hired to keep clean. The book of a victim, building his case. The book I'd built my whole life around. The one that made my father a martyr and made me his blade. The second book was the deal. Same hand, same patient columns, the same square, honest letters. And it was the record of a cornered man preparing to sell. Dates, terms, a meeting arranged for the night he died. Aldo Russo had not been bringing his evidence to the authorities. Not the way I'd told myself for 3 years, the way I'd needed to believe, to keep my grief clean. He'd been bringing it to Salvatore Marchetti. To trade. The whole case against the family, handed to the head of the family, in exchange for one thing. Written on the last full page. Underlined once, the way he underlined the things that mattered more than money. Protection for L. Me. He'd been going to sell the one weapon that could destroy them to the man it could destroy, to buy my safety. Because by the end Salvatore had bled him so dry that an honest man with a dangerous book and a daughter had simply run out of honest options. There were small things in the deal book that undid me worse than the big one. He'd priced it. My careful father, who could not stop being an accountant even while selling his soul, he'd valued the evidence line by line, the way he valued everything. And then he'd crossed all of it out, every figure, and written in the margin in a smaller, faster hand. Not for money, only for L. He hadn't even tried to get paid. He'd held the one card that could have set us up for the rest of our lives, the proof a dozen families would have killed for, and he decided to spend every cent of it on a single clause about his daughter's safety and nothing else. Salvatore Marchetti must have looked at that page and thought he was dealing with a fool. He was dealing with a father. In this city, the two are frequently the same thing, and the graveyards are full of men who learned it one night too late to matter. And he'd done the dishonest arithmetic every cornered person in this city eventually does, that a living father who'd shaken hands with the devil was worth more to me than a dead martyr who hadn't. I sat with that until the windows went gray. I had spent 3 years being the daughter of a man who died because he was too good for this city. It was the load-bearing wall of me. Everything I'd done, the false name, the long con, the marriage, the cannery, I'd done it standing on the fact that my father was clean and they were filth, and I was the justice in between. And here was his own hand, telling me the truth was smaller and more human and so much heavier to carry. That he'd been clean right up until clean was going to get me killed, and then he'd picked up the phone and called the devil and offered him everything. For me. I don't know which is worse. That my father wasn't the martyr I'd built my life on, or that the reason he stopped being one was love, that the single most compromised thing Aldo Russo ever did, he did to protect his daughter. The same daughter who'd spent 3 years avenging a version of him who would have been ashamed of the deal he died trying to make. I'd been so proud of being his blade. And he'd spent his last night on Earth trying to make sure his daughter would never have to be a blade at all.
Dario.
I'd had the deal booked for 8 months, and I'd never once used it. I want that written somewhere, even if the only place is here. I could have. The morning I learned my wife was Aldo Russo's daughter, and I learned it before the cannery, weeks before she thinks I did, but that's a different confession. I could have put that blood-stained book on the table and broken her with it. Your sainted father was going to sell you out and run. Your martyr was a dealer. The man you built your whole vengeance on would have shaken my father's hand. It would have ended her, unmade the blade in a single morning, taken her reason apart at the joints, and left her nothing to point at me. I didn't do it. I told myself it was strategy, that a broken weapon is more dangerous than a working one, that you don't hand a person their own father's disgrace, that I was keeping leverage in reserve. All true. All the kind of true I learned at my father's knee. But the actual reason, the one I didn't look at directly until she was sitting at my breakfast table in the wreck of everything, was simpler and stupider, and exactly the thing I swore I would never be. I was protecting her from it. I looked at the proof that would shatter the woman I was falling for, and I locked it in my father's safe, and I decided for her, without asking her, that she was better off not knowing. My father did that to everyone he loved, decided what they could survive, managed them for their own good, and called it love. I built my whole life swearing I'd never be him. And I'd been doing it to Lena for 8 months before she ever sewed a single lie into her coat. People will ask, Nico asked once in his way, why I married her at all. Knowing.
A Russo.
A blade with my family's name ground into its edge. The smart move, the Salvatore move, was a quiet accident on a coast road and a closed casket and no Russo daughter left to carry the grievance. I had the means. I had the reasons. I had my father's voice in my head, telling me a known enemy you let live is a debt that only compounds. I married her instead. I told the family it was optics, that wedding the ruined Russo girl to the heir who'd ruined her made us look magnanimous, made a hostile takeover look like mercy. True. And the kind of true that let me not say the rest. The rest was that I'd read her file, the long, patient con of her, the nerve and the cold, clean mind that had spent 3 years building a knife aimed directly at my heart. And I'd felt the one thing I had no business feeling for a woman sworn to end me. Recognition. There you are, I'd thought, looking at surveillance photographs of a stranger. There's someone who sees the city exactly as clearly as I do, hates it exactly as much, is exactly this alone in it. I married the knife because it was the first thing in 33 years that looked like it might understand me. I just assumed I'd be the one holding it. That's the Marchetti disease in a single sentence. We always assume we'll be the one holding the knife. Lena. He found me at the gray window with the deal book open to protection for Elle. You knew, I said. I didn't turn around. Before the cannery, you knew who I was. Weeks before. His voice was very even. Nico flagged the marriage paperwork. A Russo daughter, buried under a clean new name, marrying into the family that ruined her father. It was the most obvious knife anyone ever walked into a house. And you married me anyway, knowing. I married you anyway. I turned around then. He was in the doorway in last night's clothes, and the wall was down, not cracked, down, because we'd finally arrived at the one room in the glass house where neither of us had a single thing left to hide. You've been managing me, I said, for my own good. The thing you swore you'd never do. The thing you threw in my face in the cannery. My father decided what people could survive. You've been doing it to me since before I lied to you once. Yes, Dario said. So we're the same. My voice cracked down the middle. You loved me by lying. I loved you by lying. We both did the exact thing we hate, to the exact person we weren't supposed to fall for the exact same stupid reason. I laughed, and it hurt coming out. We deserve each other, Dario. That's the worst thing I've learned in this whole rotten city. Not that we're enemies. That we're the same kind of liar, and we did it to each other out of the same disease. And I have never in my life wanted anything the way I want to cross this room right now, and it would be the single stupidest thing either of us has ever done. For a moment, the whole ruined distance between us went thin as glass. He took a step into the room. I felt it in my whole body. The pull, 11 weeks of a marriage we'd accidentally meant straining against the knife we'd each put in the other. One more step, and I don't know what I would have done. I think I would have let the glass break. He was close enough now that I could read the thing I taught myself in 11 weeks, the pulse at his throat, too fast for a man in control, the hand gone half open at his side, like it had forgotten the orders the rest of him was under. 11 weeks ago, a stranger had married me for the photographs. Somewhere in the breakfasts and the opera box and the long, careful war of nerves, the stranger had become the only person on earth who knew exactly what I was and hadn't run. And I'd done the very same to him. Two liars accidentally building the realest thing either of us had ever had on a foundation of mutual reconnaissance. I wanted him so badly in that gray kitchen that it frightened me more than the Falcon guns had. The guns had only wanted my life.
He stopped.
He stopped because he's the more disciplined of the two of us. And because he had one more thing locked in that safe. And he decided, managing me again one last time, and we both knew it, and neither of us could stop him, that I needed to hear it before I let myself fall the rest of the way. There's a reason I never used the deal book, Lena. Past the reason that it was you. He didn't come any closer. Read it again. Read the terms. Read what Salvatore was getting. The whole case, the evidence, everything that could destroy the Marchettis, handed to him, buried. I heard my own voice slow as I said it. He got everything. He got everything. Dario agreed quietly. My father made the deal. The night your father died, Salvatore Marchetti got exactly what he wanted. The evidence buried, and the only man who could ever rebuild it scared into running. By midnight, your father wasn't a threat to mine.
He was an asset.
A solved problem. His dark eyes held mine, and I watched him hand me the thing he'd been guarding me from for 8 months, the thing about to take my whole life apart a second time in one night. Salvatore had no reason on this earth to kill Aldo Russo.
None.
He'd already won. A dead Russo was a loose end, and a commission inquiry, and a daughter with a grievance. Every single thing my father spent 40 years avoiding. I've read this book 100 times. I knew Salvatore better than anyone alive. And I'm telling you, as the one fact I would stake my own life on. He said it like setting down something heavy he'd carried too far. My father did not kill yours. The gray light, the cold glass, 3 years of my life coming apart at the joints, quietly in a kitchen. Then who did? I said. And Dario Marchetti, who'd known for 8 months, who'd married me knowing, who'd locked it all in a safe to keep me out of this exact moment, looked at me with something that was almost an apology and almost a warning. When you're ready to stop hating the wrong people, I'll tell you. But once I say the name, Lena, you can't unknow it. And whoever actually put your father in the ground is still alive, still in this city, far more dangerous than a dead Don and a corpse empire. The morning they find out you know, they'll do to you precisely what they did to him. His jaw set. I've kept you alive for 8 months by keeping you ignorant. The second I tell you the name, I can't promise to any more. To be continued. That was episode 10 of Empire of Ashes. If this one has its hooks in you, the next episode is already waiting. Subscribe so you don't miss it. The complete book is on Amazon, and early episodes plus Dario POV bonus scenes are on my Patreon. Links are in the description.
I've Mia.
Thank you for listening.